Hello, welcome to the morning after show. My name is Joshua Reimer. I'm joined by my co-host in Jared Block, and we are here to take you through all the topics of the sports realm this morning, whether it be NFL, whether it be MLB, whether it be NBA. We are here to talk about it with you guys in the Twitch comments chat. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, go check out my Twitter really quickly. I'm giving away lunch to 3 different people that comment in the chat. Ramified already first to comment. Said good morning, fellas. Good morning. How are you doing, Ramified? And yeah, we're gonna make it a good Monday. That's the goal. That's why I put out the tweet because Mondays suck, especially for us, Jared. I know Mondays are kind of the worst day of the week, in all honesty, because of so many meetings and so many things going on. But we're gonna start it out positively.
Yeah, they're especially long after back-to-back Sundays of over 12-hour football sweats. So, kind of glad we don't have any London games anymore. But yeah, it was a great weekend once again. These fall weekends in sports are always the best, and now I say that it's not going to be a busier Sunday. We got NBA now on this Sunday, so it's going to be even more wild than normal.
Yeah, even more content that we're gonna have for you guys, even more just everything. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Econics asks, where did you get that coffee? I got that coffee from my Keurig. That's where I got that coffee. QDZ said, what a wild Sunday. What a wild Sunday indeed. Bacon23 subscribing at tier 1. Thank you. They subscribed for 13 months, Jared. That's pretty insane if you ask me. Teddy Two Stacks, good morning. How are you doing? Cardinist says, yo, oh, my coffee cup. That's what he's asking. I have a 49ers coffee cup. I guess it should have went through my brain. It is still a little bit early for me. Yeah, I got that coffee cup I think from a Lids in like the mall. I think is where I got this coffee cup. It's a really nice coffee cup. It keeps it warm, and I just love it. Jared, how many cups of coffee have you had today? Because this is my second.
Yeah, this is my second too. This is
Nice.
my custom mug of my doggo.
There you go. See, sweet mug with the doggo on it. You'll love to see it. All right. Anything like how was the weekend personally? Not sports wise. Just know you had a fun weekend. Know you got to go to the Badgers game, right? I think it was the Badgers game.
Yeah,
So how was
I
that?
did. I did, and it was uh it was a crazy weekend, crazy Saturday for me. Basically was in Madison for the majority of the day. And Madison Saturdays just hit a little bit different during football season. I know that their team's not good this year, but honestly, it doesn't really matter how good the team needs to be because everybody in Wisconsin always usually gets up for this. So they played Army. It was a boring game, but honestly, it didn't really even matter. Also, the stadium is like, I don't know, 70 plus years old, so it just feels like there's this vibe and there's an aura around it. And even if the team's bad, it still was a fun time. So I had a great time. And then, like I was telling you, I have no shame in saying that I did the Sunday morning content for London with like basically one eye open at 5:30 in the
Yeah.
morning. So
Yeah.
that's
There you
that's
go.
how my Sunday went.
That's what Saturday night or Sunday night content's gonna be like when we go to Kansas City in a couple weeks. That's 2 weeks away that we're going to Kansas City.
Yep.
That's gonna be a blast, and we can't wait to still provide content for you guys while we are in Kansas City and in person together. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, Fatty McGee says $1 million. Bodine says rumor had that someone woke up feeling like $1 million. We had a member take down the Millie Maker last night on FanDuel. So happy for him. He's an absolutely awesome guy. So for those who don't know who it is, it's Jarhead in the Discord. Great guy, an older guy, U.S. Marines veteran, I'm pretty sure. And the
Mhm.
couple of times, actually, I've talked to him a ton. He's had a ton of questions for me about content and stuff. Every time I've talked to him, though, just the nicest guy. So for me, couldn't have happened to a better guy. We're super happy for him. His lineup was just absolutely nutty when I looked at it. I was like, yeah, that
Yep.
that that makes sense that he won it because he absolutely nailed almost every spot.
Yep. He did. Yeah. I talked to him a little bit during the middle of the week about, whether it was on football streams or just in DMs about just guys that could score touchdowns. And he said he built the lineup. And I want to make sure I get this right. I'm pretty sure that he said he built the lineup while he was at his grandson's sporting event,
Oh,
and then just threw it in and just let it fly. And that's how it happens, man. It's never like the lineup was really good too. Like we always bash the top million, like the millionaire score all the time for the most random things. His lineup was extremely good, and we'll review that here in a few hours on the Strong Side stream for Monday.
Yeah, it was a really good lineup. That's the thing. Like it's never like the lineup that you're like, this is gonna win it all. Like it's never that lineup. It's the lineup that you throw in, you're flying by the seat of your pants, and you're just saying, you know what, let's go with it. And usually that's the lineup that ends up taking everything down. So super happy for him. Absolutely awesome story for Roto Radar Nation, and absolutely awesome to know that like he used our content to do that too. Like fact that he used our content just makes it a little bit more sweet for me. Anyway, all right, we've talked through the intro plenty. Anything else before we get to this NFL recap?
No, I mean it was again a really unusual week. It's maybe not unusual anymore, but maybe we just have to get used to this kind of world that we're living in right now. I thought that maybe it'd be a 1 year thing with COVID last year, but it's certainly impacting a lot of things on both sides of the ball. And the more that you think about it, like the more it directly applies to DFS and betting in general.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about some NFL recap. I told Jared this as we got on for the morning call, and like we usually get on like 20 minutes beforehand just to talk through company stuff and see anything else we need to do. And I have no shame in saying that I told Jared this had to be my worst betting weekend in like in a really, really long time. I think I said in my life, I don't think it's my worst betting weekend in my life. I think my worst betting weekend, I don't know if you know this. I bet, I had like a humongous bet on the Warriors to win the finals against the Raptors and
Oh
took it
no.
at, it was at the beginning of the series. So I took it at like minus 170, and oh my, that was a bad bet. That was a bad bet for sure. But this weekend was just as bad. Like I had a teaser that I told you about that I felt really good about. I should have just replaced the Colts with the Rams. I don't know what I was thinking putting Rams in there at plus 17, but Rams plus 17 ended up making me lose that one. I also had Packers and Chiefs in that one. So 2 out of 3, but that's the sad part about teasers. If you don't get them all, you don't cash. And then ended up like I didn't bet on anything else for the main slate just because I couldn't find anything that I really liked. But I did end up betting on the Browns -3 for the afternoon slate, and the Cardinals just keep fucking me, man. Like, let's start off on this Cardinals game because I keep
Yeah.
saying this Cardinals team is a bunch of frauds, but like when I don't know how much longer I can go without saying like this Cardinals team is very, very legit and has a chance at potentially a Super Bowl.
Yeah, their schedule is very, I wouldn't say it's strong. I wouldn't say it's just middle of the road. So I think that yesterday would have been the game that I felt like they would have lost because the defense, everything was just kind of turning in that direction. Cliff Kingsbury wasn't able to be with the team. We know that, they were down some offensive linemen facing the Browns defensive line. That's, insanely tough to, protect Kyler Murray against. Um, Zach Ertz wasn't quite on the team yet. He'll be playing this Sunday. Yeah, I mean, just injury after injury to the Browns. Nick Chubb was out after a weird scratch on Friday. Kareem Hunt left the game with a possible. People thought it was an Achilles issue. It's actually just a lower leg injury. And then Baker Mayfield dislocated his left shoulder again for the second time, and he's going to be. They're saying he's week to week, if not, like maybe even closer to day. He might try to play through this, which they play on Thursday night, so I'm not really sure how that's going to happen. But regardless, the Cardinals have bit us both week after week after week, and it's one of those things where, like, if we're on them, they bust. If we're not on them and betting against them, they blow out the other team. This has happened now twice with the Browns and the Rams. Kyler Murray, I was scared off of this game in general because of the win factor. We see this every single year, a couple times a year at home games for Cleveland. They're right off of Lake Erie, and they just get smacked and hammered by this lake effect wind. And even though through all that, Kyler Murray still had 20 completions for 229 yards, which isn't really impressive, but he had 4 touchdowns. They ran the ball effectively too, and I don't know. It's just it was a strange week, especially for that Cardinals team. And more impressively, they stopped the Browns, who I guess are kind of one dimensional. Maybe they're more one dimensional. Maybe this offense has to work with 2 running backs. Maybe that's just the way it has
No.
to go.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe Hunt has to be in there to like present the defense an option of a change of pace back. And if Hunt's not the guy that comes in for that change of pace type of play, even if he ends up running the ball during that play, it still makes that offense maybe more one dimensional than we thought. So very interesting. By the way, Mike P2222, thank you for the tier 1 sub. We greatly appreciate it over here at Roto Radar. Yeah, it's just like it's a weird spot because I really thought that like the Browns had every advantage. Browns at home, wind blowing like crazy. You know the Browns have an elite run defense, so like the Cardinals shouldn't have been able to throw the ball as much as they did. But no, like I think something else that you need to consider, and I forget who was calling the game yesterday. It wasn't Romo. Romo was calling the Cowboys game. But whoever was calling the game was talking about it and saying like the Browns have like blown coverages nearly every single play. Like they're away from receivers by like 10 plus yards. And you saw it plenty of times. You saw D Hop just wide open in the back of the end zone in that last touchdown that he got. You saw so many spots where these wide receivers just weren't, no one was even near them. It looks like completely blown
Right.
coverage. So, like, is this maybe more to the point that, less that, like, we can respect this Cardinals team and more that maybe the Browns aren't as good as we thought they were? Or are we giving all the credit to the Cardinals?
I think the Browns are still solid. They have some definite scary secondary issues to figure out. Obviously their offense runs around Nick Chubb, and Kareem Hunt. So I think that both of them um, being in is definitely something that's helped them a lot. So I think that you just have to give credit to the Cardinals though, because they're a scary team, and the defense,
No.
while sort of shaky, has now held the Rams and the Browns both to under a combined 30 like under 28 points, I believe. So, yeah, they're going to continue to roll. The Cardinals, we're not going to be able to answer this question this week because they play the Texans in Arizona, and then they do play the Packers on Thursday night in late October. That'll be fun to watch. Cardinals play the Niners as well the following week, so their schedule is still kind of middle of the road. They still have some tough matchups coming up with the Rams and the Cowboys and the Seahawks to finish the year. But I think that this team is for real, and I don't know. I still feel like the Rams can pull out a NFC West victory here, but the Cardinals are a very, very dangerous wild card team, if not maybe a top two seeded team.
Yeah, very good team. Going to be interesting to see where it comes down to once they do continue to get tested, because that's the great thing about the NFC West. You're going to continue to get tested throughout the year. Yeah, you've already faced the Rams and Niners once. Now you get to face them for a second time these upcoming weeks. So going to be interesting to see how they're tested and if they have some struggles when they are away from home, because I don't think they are away from home for the Rams game. I think that was at
Yep,
home for
they're at
the
home.
Rams. But they were at home for the Cardinals game. So going into Levi Stadium will be a little bit of a challenge, in my opinion, for Kyler. And I don't know. I'm just excited to see. I guess this is what it comes down to me. And maybe I'm going to sound a little bit like a homer, and that's fine. I feel like this just proves that this Niners team is for real. Like, Niners kept it as close as they possibly could with the Cardinals compared to all these other teams that are getting blown out by like 20 points or something. I mean, we've seen something similar with the Rams where they got blown out. We saw the Browns get blown out, and we saw that the only game recently that the Cardinals have kept close or have had a close game in is with the 49ers. So, I don't know. Am I overreacting a little bit? Am I being too much of a homer right now?
I mean, the Vikings game was one score,
Hmm.
but other than that,
Good
like
point.
they've Niners are the I will say the Niners are the only team that's kept them from scoring under 31 points. So
Wow,
that's a
that's
stat that's
crazy.
pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Even in the win game yesterday, I thought that the Browns defense was going to be able to stop them win regardless. So I don't know. Maybe we are. I don't know. Maybe we're getting too excited about this Cardinals team. Maybe we're not giving them enough credit. I don't know.
maybe.
We don't know yet. I mean, it's still like, it's week 6. Um, we saw the exact same thing with Pittsburgh last year, right? Started out super
Yeah,
hot, tailed off toward the end. The Cardinals have not finished the season strong with Kyler Murray yet either. So if you
good point.
remember, they were doing pretty well, and then they kind of just tailed off toward the end of the year. So this team is a little bit better. I think that the fact that they brought in guys like James Conner, guys like who now like JJ Watt, obviously they brought in Zach Ertz, they brought in AJ Green, they drafted Rondale Moore. Like this team has a lot of really, really awesome pieces in it, and they're not relying on just Kyler Murray to do extraordinary things with DeAndre Hopkins anymore.
Yep, for sure. Giannis Perez says Browns coming out their first series 5 wide, throwing 3 passes and going 3 and out told the tale of the game. Seems like they were scared to call the game the same without Chubb there. I agree. They were a little scared to give Hunt the same role as Chubb, and because
Yeah.
of that I think that is why you saw this team struggle a little bit too. I think it would be a completely different game if they just, replaced Hunt with Chubb and replaced Hunt's role to who's it behind Hunt? It's Felton, right?
Yeah, well, Felton is their like change of pace wide receiver slash running back, and then Dearness Johnson is the guy that I thought was going to get the majority of the carries outside of Kareem Hunt.
Yeah. So I think that, if you change the game plan for the Browns a little bit more, if Stefanski had a better play calling situation, then maybe it would have been a different story. But regardless, let's talk about some more games. Is there a certain game that jumps off the page to you, Jared, that you want to talk about here?
I mean, shout out to the Jaguars for winning for the first time this season against the Dolphins in historically impressive fashion in London. So that was pretty cool to see. Urban Meyer's job is safe for one more year. I was joking with a buddy who I was in the hotel with yesterday morning, and we were talking about how, does Urban Meyer fly home with the team in London, or does he just hang out and stay there and chill for a little bit,
Yeah.
soak in that win? Yeah, the one thing that sticks out to me the most um, was the game that I thought was going to be a sneaky shootout, which ended up being a sneaky shootout in the Vikings and Panthers. And while like there weren't many massive DFS games in there outside of Adam Thielen, it was a fun one to watch. And these Vikings games, every single one of them goes down to the final score. It's actually crazy.
Yeah, I know we have a ton of Vikings fans too, so it's super fun to see them sweat it out every single week because that's what the Vikings are taking years off of lives right now by making every
For
game
sure.
so close. I told you I was like this. The total was at 46, and that was one of the bets where I was like,
Yep.
should I not? Like
Yep.
I told you when we were talking yesterday morning, that seems way too low at 46 and a half, and indeed it was because we ended up getting 62 combined points between these two teams. Saw Kirk Cousins look pretty good. He had a good fantasy day. Dalvin Cook had a good fantasy day. Chuba had a decent fantasy day. Nothing amazing. But I think the best fantasy day was probably that Panthers defense, right? Because didn't they have like a touchdown
Yeah.
and they had a few turnovers as well? So a lot going on for that Panthers defense. I don't know what to do with this Vikings team anymore. With me, it's kind of the same for the Cardinals, right? When I don't roster them, they show out. They look absolutely amazing. They end up doing a lot of things that are really impressive. When I do roster them, they look absolutely awful. So, what are your thoughts on this Vikings team? I know they're not a competitor for the NFC North, but are they a potential wild card team? Like, could they come into the mix there?
Yeah, they're 500. They're gonna have to battle it out with the Bears, who are now they're both 3-3. So I think that the wild card still could be up for grabs. However, I think that most of the wild card spots are going to go to the NFC West teams. So it could be an NFC North or bust for these the teams that are beneath the Packers. But the thing that I was going to say, but then correcting myself here, it's not a home run to get an over in any Vikings game. It might this week, and it might the week after, and a couple weeks in a row here, but it's not guaranteed. We've seen now the Vikings Lions. We thought was going to be a shootout game. That game was only it was close, so I'll give it that. All these games are staying close, but they're not like overpoweringly shootouts. So that one yesterday definitely was, but the Browns Vikings was underwhelming. Vikings Lions was underwhelming. Vikings Seahawks was underwhelming too. And then the other one was the Cardinals Vikings game that went to that last second field goal. So, yeah, they get the Cowboys this week on Sunday Night Football, and then they get the Ravens and Chargers as well. So, going to be interesting to see how those numbers match up to what we're seeing so far. But it just proves my point and your point of saying that this team is just unpredictable.
Unpredictable indeed. Bacon23 said, for us Vikings fans, please quit playing the Vikings, Josh. Will do. I have no problem with taking the sacrifice for y'all, especially because so many of our members are Vikings fans. Yeah, Will Harp says, yes, Josh, you are banned from picking Vikings. Dealio. Sounds like a plan. Yeah, I mean, it was a great game. Kirk Cousins has taken the next step this year. I think that's what surprises me the most about this Vikings team. I mean, we know Kirk Cousins is a good QB, right? But like he at the beginning of the year, like I remember people saying like MVP stuff in the chat. I think that's definitely cooled down now that they're 3-3. But like, Cousins has taken that next step almost this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, he looks great. It's just he still has some stinkers, right? Like putting
Yeah,
up 7 points against the Browns. You would have expected more for him against the Vikings as well. But when it comes time, the thing that he does is he plays the shootout game really well. That's what he does.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, correcting myself here. Thanks, Will. The Vikings and Cowboys play on Halloween, which is 2 weeks
Ooh, that's
from
always fun.
2 weeks from today or
Uh,
yesterday.
that's gonna be a blast to play on Halloween. I remember the Niners and Cardinals played on Halloween last year. That game was extremely close, or maybe that was 2 years ago. I don't know. Anyway, all right. Next game that we're gonna talk about. Let's talk about your Packers, Jared, and let's talk about the Packers facing off against the Bears. Good win for the Packers. I don't think like for me when I was watching this game, it was never really in doubt that the Packers are going to win it. Like I think that they look steady throughout the whole entire game. But are there any takeaways that you had from it?
There was one big moment in the game that I think this was before the Aaron Rodgers touchdown, which we'll talk about in a second here. But there was a spot where the Bears could have made a run, and they had a huge hole for Khalil Herbert, who scored the touchdown, but then there was a holding call that sent that thing back, and they ended up actually not getting any points out of it because of a sack that led to a punt. So that was the dagger for me for the Bears, and that's unfortunate because of many reasons. But I had Herbert in a lot of spots. I would have loved that second touchdown. Also, Jarhead would have had a higher score because he had Herbert in his lineup too, which is crazy to think about.
Insane.
Anyway, yeah. So that was the turning point for me in this game. I always knew that it was going to be like a grinded out, like super under spot where these two teams always play each other really tough. And while Rodgers has an insane record, I think it's like 22-5 against Chicago, all time, like in his career. Still, every game is within like 10 points. It's like there's hardly any blowouts. I think there was like one that I can even count that we remember. So yeah, it's just no matter who's playing, like we saw Justin Fields and Khalil Herbert, both backups, even like second or third string players playing, and these two teams just always play extremely tough. Packers got the better of it this time with that Aaron Rodgers touchdown, which I guess we'll talk about next.
Yeah, we'll talk about that coming up here soon. Before we do talk about that, I want to talk about this Bears side and more specifically talk about Khalil Herbert. It, like, are we willing to buy in on this now? Because he had
Yep.
one good week, 18 for 75. I think that's super solid as your first game as a rookie. But now you go 19 for what 97 with a touchdown. Like he
Yep.
looked amazing yesterday. I did not think Khalil Herbert would be this guy, but people who drafted him, he's paying off. And I don't know. What do you think his role well, first off, do you think he's the real deal? Second off, what do you think that role looks like when David Montgomery and Damian Williams comes back?
This is kind of a bummer situation because they have four really bad matchups in a row. And then they play the Lions on Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
which I do expect David Montgomery to be back for. I also think that, Damian Williams is week to week with COVID. So we're probably not going to see this scenario again this season unless there's more injuries. So unfortunately, I think that the Khalil Herbert train ends here. And if it happens to go one more week, I will be getting off because they play the Buccaneers in Tampa.
Ooh, yeah. Good time to get off the train is when the team faces off against the Bucks. Jakku says, I think Montgomery's still too talented. Maybe wait until Montgomery asks for the bag and then move to Herbert. I, I mean, like, it just sucks when you see teams draft these amazing running backs that would be good in any other system, and there's a jam log at the running back position because you have Damian Williams. I'm pretty sure you still have Tariq Cohen on pup. Like
Yep.
I don't know if he's playing this year, but I
I
know
think he's done now.
yeah.
I think I think the times of Tariq Cohen are over.
All right, so we can get rid of the Tariq Cohen talk, but you still have Damian Williams in front of you, and you still have David Montgomery in front of you. It's a tough spot to be in as Khalil Herbert when you have that much talent. And like I talked about it to Jared earlier last week and saying that like how much do we really like this spot because the Packers have been good against the run this year, but clearly it didn't matter. Khalil's just that talented. I don't even think like the offensive line was that great in front of him in my opinion. I
No.
just saw a lot of impressive stuff from Khalil yesterday that I just think that he could be a big part of this offense at some point in his career if they keep him around and after Montgomery leaves, or if he ever does leave. You think Herbert gets a Pollard kind of workload? I don't think he does because he
Yeah.
still has Damian Williams ahead of him. Like, I don't think you can say that he'll get that type of workload. When is Montgomery? When does Montgomery get back? He's on IR. I don't know if he's getting back exactly after the 3 week period though. Do you know?
I would say it's unlikely that he returns in the next 2 weeks. I think that they're going to try to. I mean, at some point they're going to have to make a decision because I don't think you can wait until Thanksgiving, especially with the teams that they have to face now in the coming month. They have the Bucks at on the road. They host the 49ers on Halloween. They go to Pittsburgh to take on Seattle in a primetime, or sorry, the Steelers in a primetime game, and then they play the Bears at home. So things do not get easier for Chicago. They get much, much worse. They have the Lions, then they have the Cardinals, Packers, Vikings, Seahawks. So like they got to make a decision sometime. I mean, he probably comes back a little bit too early, in my opinion. But at the same time, I don't know if the Bears necessarily were planning on, having a competitive season. I know that most people, obviously, that's what you set out to do, but this is what, this is kind of what happens, and this is the time of the season, week 6 through 10, 6 through 11, where teams start to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. So we'll see if the Bears can pull out some weird wins here, but they're going to be dogs in the next 4 games.
Yeah, they certainly are. All right, what other NFL game do you want to talk about, Jared? Or well, before we talk about the NFL, the next game, got to talk about Rodgers because he didn't get the chance to. For those who didn't see the Rodgers touchdown to kind of seal this game, and who didn't see what he said, let me scroll to it and tell you guys word for word. Or what? Do you want to read what this Bears fan had to say?
Oh yeah, I got it. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
go for it.
This is
It's all
my
yours.
favorite. This is my favorite subject of the year so far. Uh, okay, so this is from a Twitter or a Reddit thread, and this has been going around now for the past 24 hours or so. This comes from a direct quote. It's one thing as a fan to see Aaron Rodgers saunter into the end zone to score the game-sealing touchdown with his own 2 hands. It's what he's been doing for literally my entire life as a Bears fan, and sometimes it just be like that. But to hear him stare down the crowd and yell, "I own you, I still own you," crushed my soul to a new level. It served as a reminder that Aaron Rodgers isn't just an idea. He's a real human being that comes into our city once a year and fucks my shit up. Aaron Rodgers is the boogeyman, and I fully expect him to be there when I die. Staring into my eyes, smiling softly, "I still own you." End quote.
I love that. First of all, that's hilarious. But second of all, just like the fact that he said that to the Bears crowd just makes me crack up, man. And I wasn't watching the game at that point. I think I was watching some other game at that point, but I saw Adam Schefter tweet it out. It said the cameras or whatever, the mic picked up how he said it and said,
Oh
"I
yeah.
own you, I still own you," and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Like Aaron Rodgers is just he's owned this Bears team. Like, it is what it is, right? Like, since the Packers have just owned this Bears team for a really, really long time now. Like, since Brett Favre was in town, this Packers team has owned the Bears.
Yep, I don't remember the exact numbers on the rivalry. Um, if you want to hear the quote without anything bleeped out of it, go to YouTube and just search "I still own you, Aaron Rodgers." It's all over the internet right now, so you can get the full quote there. The Packers, I knew this because it was on a quote. So this is from Pat McAfee show. This is not from us. They basically said in an interview with Aaron Rodgers that since Brett Favre and him took over for the Packers, they were down like 25 to 30 games in the rivalry, and now they're up 5 over a span of 20 plus years. And remember, these teams play each other a minimum of 2 times a year and have met in the playoffs considerably over the last 25 years. So Rodgers is 22-5 against them, and it's been a pretty awesome thing to see. It's gonna be a very weird feeling when neither of those two guys are playing for this Packers team anymore against this rivalry.
Yeah, for sure. We're going over, Jared. We're going over to the video recap screen, and we're gonna get the opportunity to watch this game or watch this touchdown at the very least. Here, let me move the screen for you guys that way so everyone can see it. All right, here we go.
Rodgers snaps it quick. Pressure coming. Scrambles to his right. Pumps and runs. Aaron Rodgers is inside the pylon. Touchdown Packers. It's Rodgers running for the score.
Right on cue, Joe.
I still own you. I still own you. I get a kick out of that every time I end up seeing it. So it was definitely a good game for the Packers. Anything else that you want to cover NFL wise? We don't have too much time because we have a lot of topics to get to. We still have to talk about the MLB. We still get to talk about NBA, which is just one more day away. But last game that you want to talk about for NFL, and then we'll push the rest to tomorrow.
Yeah, so I guess we can recap Sunday night really quick because we'll be recapping Monday Night Football tomorrow morning. Good game, a lot closer than I thought it would be. Did not think it was going to come down to the final quarter. Plus, I thought that the Steelers had enough opportunities to put the game away, but they took a different approach yesterday. Seattle did. The defense still did not play very well, but the offense with Geno Smith in there was very run heavy, and they were able to kind of get anything that they wanted on the ground. And, I underestimated how much they were going to use Alex Collins last night. Did not think that they were going to give him as many carries as they did, but when the guy was hot, and he was able to break 8 to 10 yard chunks repeatedly. So, I don't think that's going to be an every week thing. I think that eventually, this team is not going to use that approach, but they took they did a decent job with Geno Smith, who started a game for the first time since 2017. So I'll give them credit here. Came down to a clutch kick from the Steelers, Chris Boswell, in overtime. So shout out to the Steelers for getting that win last night. A few flags that were controversial, a few plays that were controversial down the stretch. Do you think, and it's pretty clear to me, but I want to get the chat's reaction. I think that most people would say that Ben Roethlisberger throw was indeed a fumble.
Yes, I agree with that it was a fumble. I did not get to watch a lot of this game, but I did see that part, and I agree with you that Ben Roethlisberger for was a fumble. We had that scary Darrell Taylor injury too.
Yeah.
Like, thank
Yep.
goodness he's okay. They came out after the game and said that like he was able to move all his extremities and everything, and he seemed okay. But like just scary injuries. You love football, but you hate when you see those types of injuries. And sadly, those are the product of playing football. So I don't
Yeah.
know. But yeah, it was a good game. Honestly, like I know you're saying like you didn't expect it to be this close. I kind of expected it to be this close. I knew that the Steelers weren't going to make it easy. I am surprised with how they made it close, though, right? Because I did not expect Alex Collins to have 20 rushing attempts for 100 yards. That is not what I expected from this team. I expected Geno Smith to, start throwing the ball. He looked good last week. I don't think he looked like a bad quarterback when he came in to substitute Wilson. But I don't know. I'm not that surprised that it was close. I am surprised with how they made it close, though.
Yeah, I did not expect them. Again, they gave Alex Collins 20 carries on the ground, and that's not what I expected them to do. Kind of makes you wonder if maybe Chris Carson's just been hurt the entire season, which it now comes out that he was. So
Yeah,
if they were giving Chris Carson 20 carries, he probably would get like 55 yards. So that's
but he had
I don't
one
know.
big run for a touchdown, though.
Yeah, probably. So, yeah, Steelers defense came up big when it was needed. A little bit of, I think that's a little bit of inexperience on Geno Smith's part, uh, but he certainly hasn't played terrible. Obviously people are going to remember the fumble at the end of the game that kind of cost them the victory, but I still think he played pretty well for, not starting for 4 years. He's been tough, he has a tough road ahead of him, and Russell Wilson's this team's leader. And yeah, I don't know, just a weird set of circumstances that are placed in Seattle now. So I do have an update on the injury from Pro Football Doc. He said that so far so good. Apparently, he has sources that are in direct contact with him on all that.
That's good. Good to hear. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, the Seahawks team, like, let's talk about their next few opponents, right? They face off against the Saints on Monday Night Football at home. I think they probably end up losing that matchup, though. I do think it'll be a close one again. They have the Jags game, which I'm sure they'll win against the Jags. Then they have the Packers, the Cardinals. Washington football team is a hard team to face off against. The 49ers, the Texans, the Rams, the Bears, the Lions, and the Cardinals to end off the year. I mean, like a relatively tough schedule, but not like a super tough schedule. I think the only thing that makes that schedule really tough is that they're facing off against a whole bunch of NFC West teams.
Sure.
They're 2-4 right now. Does this Seahawks team end the season with a losing record this year?
It all depends when Russell Wilson comes back, if he comes back. That's really the only answer I can give right now. But if you had to tell me that, well, if Geno Smith's the starter the rest of the year, they're definitely under 500. Because I don't think they win any of those NFC West matchups that are so crucial to how this division plays out. Also, very, very, maybe they sneak in. I don't think the Cardinals would let this happen. But let's just say hypothetically that last game of the year, January 9th, Cardinals already locked up the number 1 seed. Do they let Seattle sneak into the wild card? That's my question. Probably not.
I think you'd rather let Seattle slip into the wild card than let's say if the 49ers are at that last spot. I think you'd rather play the Seahawks and then instead of the 49ers, at least in my opinion. I don't know.
What if Russ is back though?
Even with Russ back, I still think that I'd rather face off against the worst defense. And at the end of the day, especially because the Cardinals, I mean, it all comes down to that second game, right? But like you said, the 49ers are the only team to keep the Cardinals under 31 points. So that defense clearly did something right. It's just the offense wasn't in the right position that day against the Cardinals for the 49ers. So I don't know. I personally, if I'm the Cardinals, if I'm Cliff Kingsbury, I'd rather face off against the Seahawks any day of the week compared to facing off against that very dangerous 49ers team. But that's just me as a 49ers fan as well. Let's say he's out until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say he comes back for the second 49ers game. Russell Wilson comes back for the second 49ers game, which means he's in for the last 6 games of the season. What do you think the record is? Or at least tell me, do they finish above 500?
I think that they finish 500. Maybe they sneak out. Maybe they sneak one of those games, whether it be the Niners game or the Cardinals game. I don't think they beat the Rams in LA. But they should win against the Texans, Bears, and Lions. So there's a chance they go 4-2, but most likely it'll be 3-3.
Just very interesting to see where this Seahawks team is now, just because of this injury, because of everything. Your lead running back's hurt. I don't know. It's just really interesting to see. All right. Anything else on this game? If not, we'll talk about the rest of the NFL tomorrow. But right now, we're going to talk about some other football that happened on Saturday.
Yeah, we are going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys' incredible win on tomorrow. I know it's not Jason Garrett Tuesday for Cowboys, but it makes sense to do that. Yeah. And we'll talk about the Giants and where they're at, because what happened, what we called last week, is exactly what happened yesterday. So Jason Garrett's in a bad spot, and we'll talk about that tomorrow.
We will talk about that tomorrow. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about college football madness, because that's exactly what it was this weekend. It was absolute madness. We ended up winning on DraftKings. We lost on FanDuel for the college football package. We ended up breaking even with betting. So it was a meh kind of week. But I think the thing that I was most mad about was this LSU game as they faced off against Florida. And, Coach Oregon on his way out, it seemed like a spot where LSU was just about ready to mail it in. And, of course, nope. LSU just decides to play spoiler to Florida, of course, in a game where they're in Death Valley, right? But, they talked about it a ton of times on the broadcast. There was no one in the stands. No one's interested in LSU football when they lose. And so, they've been losing a ton this season, and it was just a really interesting spot. They talked about it a ton. Maybe the team's rallying behind the head coach since he is on his way out at the end of the year. What are your thoughts? LSU would have to perform a literal miracle to end up being ranked at the end of the year, considering that they have so many more tough opponents to go off against. But this was an encouraging step forward as they faced off against Florida and ended up winning.
Yeah, no, I think they lose next week against Ole Miss. It's really not going to be close there, but I think that it was. So did we? I feel like that announcement came out, if my memory serves me correctly, after that game was over and not beforehand.
Yeah, they were talking about it on the broadcast, saying that that's most likely the scenario. It would have to be a literal miracle for him to end up staying, but they officially came out with it after the game.
Yep. So that just tells me that that he told the players that day. That's
Yeah.
what it tells me
Yeah. That
because
makes sense.
that all the momentum goes that way. They had a very solid fourth quarter. Put up. You know, they faced adversity in that second half, giving up 22 points in the third quarter. It looked like they were kind of out of it, and they came back and they won the game. So not really super impressive numbers from the passing game necessarily, but the running game was just absolutely insane. Like I know we see this a lot in college, but 36 carries, man, for almost 300 yards from Davis Price. Like
Yeah.
what? Like where did that come
He
from?
he was insane that game. Like I watched the whole game through and through because my biggest bet of the day was on that LSU team to cover because not on LSU to cover, on Florida to cover. LSU was dealing with like a ton of injuries. Like they were without Derek Stingley, they were without their second best corner as well. Those two corners are going to be like they're going to be drafted and they're going to be amazing players in the NFL, in my opinion, especially Stingley. I think Stingley is super talented, but like they're missing other pieces on defense and they're just missing a ton of pieces. And it was still, they're missing Kayshawn Booty, who's like, he's a great wide receiver too. And they just still ended up rallying around, I guess, the fact that their head coach wasn't going to end up staying around, I guess. And so it was a really good game for them. I don't know, man. What does this mean for Florida? I don't really know. Maybe it's just a bad spot to be in. I'm sure they fall outside of the rankings this week. I honestly haven't looked at the AP top 25 quite yet,
I think
but
they are.
yeah, I would assume that they do. And so if they did, that's fine. I'm perfectly fine with that decision. Just to tell you guys what this upcoming schedule is like for LSU. Face off against Ole Miss next week, like you said. Then they face off against Bama. Then they face off against Arkansas, which is a tougher matchup than I think a lot of people give it credit for. Then they face off against UL Monroe, which is not a tougher battle than most people expect it to be. And then Texas A&M to end the year. Like you face three ranked teams out of your last 5 games, and I think Arkansas is a team that they shouldn't be ranked because that defense isn't that great, but that offense is certainly talented. So like it's a really tough road ahead for this LSU team, and they can very well find themselves at mediocrity once again this season at a 500 record, and just calling it a day there.
Yeah, Florida's in the same boat. They have Georgia at home this week, and then they. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if some of these games go their way, South Carolina, Samford should be a win there. But Missouri and Florida or Florida State at the end of the year is kind of a tougher way to go. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that Florida's going to probably be maybe a game or two above 500 and not be ranked.
Yeah, most likely. All right, let's talk about another SEC game. This one was a big one coming into the week, and everyone was super excited to watch it. It's Georgia facing off against Kentucky. We kind of went back and forth on Friday. I said that it would be closer than people expected. You said it wouldn't be closer, and it wasn't close, but Kentucky ended up covering, which is all that really matters because we had Kentucky plus 21.5 as one of our bets this weekend. So happy to see that Kentucky covered. I mean, like Georgia just keeps on proving themselves as top dog, and the fact that they had such a good game against Kentucky's running game is really impressive because I thought Chris Rodriguez would be able to get things going. He was in his hometown. He grew up in Georgia, so I thought that he would really want this game, and he ended up having 7 carries for 7 yards. Like this is one of the most dynamic running backs of the season so far in Chris Rodriguez. 7 rushes for 7 yards. This Georgia defense is insane. Like it's insane.
Yeah, does that hurt his stock at all, or do you think that
100%.
people see that Georgia's defense is something?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like people see that Georgia's defense is something, but they also, you know, it does hurt him just because of that type of performance, and it hurts your numbers over the whole year a lot too, right? Like the fact that you didn't get your usual 100 yards and your usual touchdowns does hurt overall. So I don't know. It's a little bit of both in my opinion.
Yeah, the fact that I don't know. The thing that bugs me about this whole thing is that he only got, and I know that they were trailing too, but
Yeah.
he was second on the team in carries, and there were guys that were actually pretty close to him. They gave 4 guys more than 4 carries, and yeah, it's just not a good look for Rodriguez for sure.
Yeah, definitely not a good look for Rodriguez. I mean, just at the end of the day, Georgia's good at Georgia. I mean, so Georgia for the rest of the season, like you said, they face off against Florida next week. They face off against Missouri. They face off against Tennessee, then Charleston Southern, and then Georgia Tech. Like super easy way to go out through the rest of your schedule. I would say that like maybe Hendon Hooker gives them a little bit of a problem when they face off against Tennessee, but I think I'm just being a little bit too hopeful that someone will end up beating this team. I think most
Yeah,
likely they go undefeated and they're the number one seed in the college football playoffs.
that's what it looks like to me. I don't think I see many upsets here, but we've seen stranger things happen.
We certainly have. We did see Alabama get beat. So, I mean, there certainly have been stranger things. Let's talk about Alabama really quickly because they certainly did have a great comeback game. They ended up winning, what was the score? 49-9. And you could get Bama at minus 17 this week. So, I was all over Bama minus 17. I figured that they were going to absolutely blow the doors off of Mississippi State. And Bryce Young proved that, like, he's the real deal, right? 4 touchdowns, 348 yards. We saw John Mechie look really good as well. Bama looks really good. So like it seems like a Bama versus Georgia SEC conference title game is going to be on the line very soon. How excited are you for that? Because I'm thrilled.
Well, that's your national championship game right there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it
Whoever wins
definitely
that game
is.
wins. So
It, it's going to be a good game for sure, and I'm excited for it. I think it'll be a blast. All right. Anything else? Do you want to talk about the game that you were at a little bit? I know you said it was boring, but honestly, it wasn't on the main slate. So when the games aren't on the main slates, I don't pay attention to them. So I don't know who won.
I shouldn't say it was completely boring. Wisconsin won 20-14. They got
There you go.
it was they were up 13-0 heading into the fourth quarter. Army scored 14 points in that fourth quarter, so it was definitely a little bit of a scary thing coming down the stretch here because they're one dimensional. Actually, both these teams are. So it was like Kai was giving me shit on the morning Saturday morning. He goes, "Get ready to see the world's fastest college football game ever because the clock doesn't stop
Yeah.
and they don't pass the ball." So yeah, it certainly came up to that kind of thing. Wisconsin's 3-3 this year. Nobody really their chance for a decent bowl game are out the window already. But it was cool to see them. Cool to be in that environment. Uh, I don't know. I mean, Army's just one of those teams. That was cool to see though. I'm not gonna lie. Like they passed the ball 6 times all game. So from that aspect, it was pretty cool to watch. And Graham Mertz didn't do that much better. 8 for 15 with 112 passing yards is not what you would expect really from a Wisconsin program.
Classic Mertz, though. I mean, you might not expect it from
Oh,
Wisconsin,
two
but
rushing touchdowns.
you do expect it from Graham Mertz, though, for sure. I guess I
Yeah.
can't move on from college football madness when we haven't talked about the main madness game where
Yep.
Iowa got beat 7-24
Uh-huh.
by Purdue. Like, it's funny because I was talking with a member before lock, and I was like, man, look out for Purdue because they have Bell. I think Bell could end up having a game here. I think he could look really good. And of course, Bell goes off for 11 receptions, 240 yards, and a touchdown. Like this guy is one of the best wide receivers at the college level. And if you underestimate this Purdue team, then just watch out because they always have him as like their weapon.
Yeah. So I just posted. I guess gave you something here in the chat to
Uh,
take a look at from that game. Very good win, very solid win for Iowa, or sorry for Purdue. I didn't see that one coming really, but it definitely was one of those shockers that you'd see from the Big Ten. So it doesn't happen very often, but it happens like once a year, and this was definitely the first time.
That is hilarious. That is 10 out of 10 work there. See, that's why like I wish I went farther than just playing like high school football. Like I could have potentially played college football, but like I wish I was in college football because I'd love to do stuff like that or be like on that national stage and just I don't know. That's awesome. And that's awesome that your left tackle ended up tweeting about it too. That's really cool. All right. Anything else college football wise? If not, we're already stretched for time. So we got to talk about MLB, got to talk a little bit about NBA, and then we're going to get out of here.
Yeah, no, I mean, Oklahoma, despite all the quarterback controversy, put up like almost 50 points in that game and completely blew out their opponent. So it'll be interesting to see what that is moving forward. But right now, let's just move on.
Yeah, I will say like super interesting situation between Williams and the other guy too. Like it keeps going back and forth. This isn't going to be the last week that you hear us talk about the Oklahoma quarterback situation. Anyway, let's talk about walking off and let's talk about some MLB because we've had 2 straight walk offs for the Atlanta Braves. I know you love to see it. I know I love to see it. It's absolutely amazing to see the Dodgers lose, man, especially after they beat, I can't say my team, but like the team that I was rooting for after the Yankees lost was the Giants. So, like, I'm excited to see this Braves team do some things. I don't know. I wonder how, if they end up making it to the World Series, I'm curious to see how much tickets will be because Atlanta is not that far away.
Yeah, it also will probably not be the matchup that MLB wants to see, right? That's
No,
that's
not at
exactly
all.
like that is why, because I'm a small market guy. Everybody knows that. That is why I am so passionate about runs against teams like the Dodgers. Went back to the last NBA season where you knew that everybody was starting to get excited about potential finals matchups between Brooklyn and whoever was going to come out of the West, and they got the worst. The NBA got the worst possible finals imaginable from an optics standpoint, but still managed to crush numbers. So baseball, I think people would tune in if they saw the Dodgers weren't in it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm rooting for the Braves heavy. And we did not talk about this. Didn't really talk about like my bad beats. Like my worst beat ever, Josh, was losing to this Dodgers team. I bet I put a considerable amount of money on a Giants Dodgers live bet
Oh
scenario
no.
where the Giant. It was like 2018 or 17, the year that it was like a week after Sean said the "fuck the Dodgers" thing that will
Ah,
reign
okay.
forever as one of the
Yep.
best moments in the company history.
Yeah.
Um, so it was like a week after that, and the Giants were playing really well. The game was in San Francisco. It went to like 13 innings, and I went to bed with the Giants up by 3 runs,
Oh no.
and I live bet them to cover by one, which pretty consistent bet there. But I put a ton of money on it. Woke up the next morning. I went to the bathroom at like 3 or 4 in the morning. Saw that they lost by like 3 runs in the
Oh
15th
no.
inning.
Oh
So
no.
that was the worst beat that I've ever had, outside of like some NFL stuff that has happened this year.
Yeah, that's absolutely awful. You hate to see that, but you do love to see this Dodgers team losing, and that's what we're seeing. You also love to see the Astros lose, and that's what we're also seeing. At least one game we saw the Astros lose. I don't know. I guess I'm the bigger guy that just loves to see the Astros lose, no matter what happens in the ALCS. I'm a loser because I'm a Yankees fan. So either the Astros win and I hate the Astros, or the Red Sox win and I also hate the Red Sox. So like I don't know what side to root for. I'm kind of rooting for the Astros to lose just because I don't want to hear Sean absolutely gloating next year on the MLB podcast every time we talk about the Stros. But I don't know. They go into Boston now, and I guess this is a point to highlight the interesting playoff methods that that the MLB does have, because the NBA does it right. They do 2-2, then they do 1-1-1. Right? It still
Yep.
gives the advantage to the home team. Is the main thing. Is that like when you do 2-3-2 in a 7 game series, it kind of gives the advantage to the away team, because now if you take away one in the first 2 games, then you have the opportunity to close it out at home over 3 games. Now, just because the Red Sox are at home, I don't think that they're going to win all 3 games, but I think they're more likely to win all 3 games than if you were to go 1-1-1 at the end of the series. It just shows that like the NBA used to do it this way too, right? I don't know when they changed it over to the 2-2-1-1-1 rule, but now that it's like the series plays out as 2 games for the home team, 3 games away, and 2 games for the home team again, it's going to be an interesting case because like this Red Sox team series is tied 1-1. If they win all 3 games at home, then they end up winning the series. I was talking with my buddy about this. He's a huge Red Sox fan, and I was just like, yeah, you guys, like that's significantly better for you guys. Like it's just a dumb
Yeah.
rule by the MLB.
Yep. It's strange how that's all working out, and we've seen this Boston Red Sox team take advantage of teams on the road. So I'm not saying I still stand by my take and saying this series goes 7 games. Bet Online tends to agree. They are saying that the series pricing is tied at -110 on either side. So like
No.
it's as even can get. Right now, the Boston Red Sox behind Rodriguez are -113 home favorites. Urquidy's on the mound as a +103 dog. So I think that there are going to be a lot of runs scored in this series, and I don't think we're going to see many games under 5 runs.
I think what this all comes down to, and something that you'll see the Astros spend a lot of money on this offseason, is just like they do not have the starting pitching to compete with these really, really good teams. And I don't even think the Red Sox are a really, really good team. I think they got hot at the right time, which is what MLB comes down to. But like, you lost Luis Garcia, you gave up that grand slam in the first inning to JD, and now you have Urquidy in Game 3, and you're potentially having Jake Odorizzi in Game 4, because that's what Dusty Baker said, is that's the potential
Oops.
next team. Like, you're pitching Odorizzi in a playoff game, like that is bad for this team. Like, if you're having to pitch Jake Odorizzi in the playoffs, it's just bad news. So I don't know. I think something that you're going to see this Astros team spend a lot of money on is to try to get back into that position where their starting pitching is just ace after ace after ace, because right now it's certainly not.
Yeah, they've run into some bad luck in the past season and a half, but I agree with you. I think that they're going to try. They have to, right? So
Yep.
that's really the only way to compete here at this point of the series, because we kind of like, you know, when you get to the point of where the Astros are at, like exiting in this round, like their World Series or bust, right? So in order to compete with that, they need to have the pitching to do it. And right now, I don't know if you can get the job done necessarily. I think like they're gonna have to overhead or like hedge themselves at some point. Do you really trust, like, if they lose today, do you actually roll out Odorizzi, or you just try to figure
No.
something else out?
No, I mean, like, but Baker said that like Odorizzi was the game plan for Game 4, and I think after they lost Game 1 or Game 2, they were like, it might end up being a situation where we're losing coming into Game 4, so we'll make the decision then. I think
Sure.
best case scenario, you probably go to a bullpen game if none of your starters are ready to pitch in Game 4. But I don't know. It's just a super interesting case. I'm excited for this little 3-game series in Fenway. Whether the Red Sox end up winning all three, or like you said, I think the game goes deep. I talked about it when this series first started, that I thought you're either going a really competitive 6 or you're going to 7, and I think that will be the case for this one. And so I'm excited to see today's game. I mean, if anyone could toss, it's Eduardo Rodriguez, but that Astros lineup certainly has a lot of righties, and so they could give Rodriguez a lot of trouble as a left-handed pitcher. All right. Anything else for the MLB? If not, let's talk NBA really, really quickly, and then we'll get out of here.
Good. This is a perfect transition then. On Tuesday, the Braves take on the Dodgers, and the reason I'm saying it's notable is because we're not going to dive into this, but I wanted to just say that the game is technically a noon start or a 1 o'clock start in LA. This game is going to be 4 o'clock Eastern time, and it should be a spot where, and the reason it's a day game is because the Lakers are playing at night. So
Oh,
that to me kind of tells me that maybe people care a little bit more about the Lakers, and that the Braves could jump into a spot where they could take this game.
crazy. I was like, why in the world are they playing a playoff game in the afternoon? Like, not just a playoff game, an NLCS game, like a game
Yep.
for to win the NL. And that would explain it. It's because the Lakers are in town, and that's why. Yeah, that'll be super interesting to see if fans show up in a full. I mean, they'll show up in a full capacity. It's a playoff game, so
They will. They
most
will.
likely games the seats will be sold out. But like, the end of the day, people are probably a little bit more excited about the Lakers starting their season. So,
Which is crazy because,
yeah,
like, first night, opening nights, it's great. The matchup in the game is awesome because we'll talk about it here in a second. But it's just basketball is just so much higher clip than baseball, even in LA.
even in LA, I mean, like you'd see well, I'm not gonna say that anyway. Yeah, even in LA, just one more day where you get the NBA regular season starting tomorrow, and it is going to be a blast. First game is going to be the Bucks facing off against the Nets. Second game is going to be the Lakers facing off against the Warriors. I know you're excited for the first game. I know I'm excited for the second game. It's gonna be a lot of fun to see these teams face off against each other, and just to have the NBA back in our lives is gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it will be. I am. This is the Bucks ring ceremony. So I was talking to a
Nice.
friend the other day. We were planning like an outdoor watch party thing at a neighbor's house. So
There you go.
we were talking about this and the fact that like it's I'm not going to say it's bittersweet, but it's like the first of all, the off season was extremely short, so we weren't really able to like we celebrated, sure, but like that went super fast, went by super fast. and now the next season is starting. I wish that they would have given them a little bit of a different opponent, right? That's the main thing that
Yeah.
it's like, oh, sweet, the rings, but then you got to play Brooklyn again. So it's like
Yeah, you got to
you
play
think that
KD and James, and like it's just you don't want to
you
lose in
know
your
that they're
ring
gonna
ceremony night.
exactly, and you know that they're gonna come out for blood, like you know it. I know that Kyrie's not playing, but like still, Brooklyn is going to try to do everything they can to ball out and win this first game for the team that beat them in that 7-game series.
Yeah, right now BetOnline has the Nets as -1.5 point favorites here. So like money line -125 for this Nets team. It's going to be an extremely close game. Both of these games are hopefully going to be extremely close. I know last year, who did the Warriors face off against for opening night? Do you remember who it was?
Uh,
All I know is the
no,
Warriors got absolutely blown out to like incredible proportions. Like the team got blown out like 80 to like 110 or something ridiculous. Was it the
no,
Nets?
I don't remember. I wouldn't be able to say.
Anyway, regardless, I just hope that both of these games are close, right? That's what I want. So Jay Kus is saying it's the Nets. All right, the Nets blew out the Warriors last year. I would think that they would have had them like conference matchups at least, but whatever, it's fine. They have conference matchups this game, or this opening day. It's going to be two really good games. That's what I'm excited for, and I'm excited to see these two teams or these four teams end up facing off against each other. It's going to be a good time. All right. Anything else, Jared, for you? First, well, I guess before that, you want to say anything about our sponsors, Bet Online?
Yeah, thanks for taking all of our money this weekend.
Yep,
I'm
took a
just
lot of
kidding. No,
money.
I won some bets. I know that you had
There
a
you
rough
go.
weekend, but I had Rams -10 or Rams -8, excuse me. That did, obviously really well. Chiefs -7 as well. And then Najee Harris scored a touchdown last night at plus odds. So there's still edges in player props for sure. So if you guys have not taken a look at Bet Online, I would suggest kind of like we've been doing with the home run props, touchdown props in the NFL are certainly where you can make some money. So head on over there. I've also bet the Steelers live spread a few times last night and was able to take that home too. So yeah, I love having them as our sponsors, and hopefully we can continue to do that for years to come.
Yes, definitely. Big thanks to Bet Online. Make sure to go check them out. If you have not already, you can bet on live bets like Jared did last night for the Steelers game. You can bet on great player props, which like Jared did last night for the Steelers game. Or you can go to their odds boosters, which they now have a special little button for their odds boosters, which I absolutely love. It's bright, it's up top. You can see it. You click on it, and then you can see all of the odds boosters. They're probably gonna have a ton for NBA tomorrow. So super excited for that. Super excited to have Bet Online as our sponsor for the show. All right, now any final thoughts, Jared, before we get out of here?
Nope, another exciting day of NFL. We'll be recapping the Millionaire winning lineup in about an hour on this channel, so make sure to tune into that again. And then we have some Monday Night Football to do before NBA opening day tomorrow.
Yep, we do certainly still plenty to cover today before we get to the NBA. So make sure to keep an eye out for us. Like Jared said, we're going to be on the Strong Side stream. What time do we go live for Strong Side? I hate to ask it here, but I've completely
Yeah,
forgotten Monday schedules.
yep, Mondays are different, obviously, but we're going to try to do it at the same time every single week. So we're going to be going live in about 55 minutes here at 1 o'clock.
Perfect. 55 minutes coming up on the Strong Side stream. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. And as always, my name is Joshua Reimer. Good morning and good skill.